know we asked the 70% of women to stand up, but I would like to give a little applause for the men in the audience as well, because this is a business issue, this is a global issue, it's not just for women. I'm extremely honored to be on this panel. I feel actually a little bit out of place on the stage with these giants of industry, and that goes a bit to what I've done together with a team of fantastic men and women at the Hong Kong Exchange, creating the Women's Exchange. And it's really been a labor of love for 3 years. We wanted to promote women internally, making sure that we were taking responsibility for the supply side of talented women executives. We did analysis on our board, we did analysis on our management committee, we did analysis at the MD level and at the SVP level, and trying to look to see how we can support the junior women in our career, the mid-level women to get to the senior level. And that included training, it included education, it included engagement with our female clients, offering network opportunities, and it included the network of women at the exchange that you could call when half the sky feels a little too heavy, which I'm sure everyone on the stage has had those days. I just want to highlight one program which the Hong Kong Exchange has been really cutting edge on, which is the Back to Work program. 80% of, let me just make sure I get the statistics right. So labor participation for women drops from 84% in the age group of 25 to 29 to 45% by the time the women reach 55, which means there is an attrition. And in Hong Kong, according to the Women's Commission, 30% of married women leave the workforce for either children or aging parents or family obligations. So the women are getting cut off midway, and it's really difficult to get back in. So we've started a program to bring women who have been out of work for several years back into the workforce. And it's our third graduating class this year. We have 100 resumes from women who have been out of the work raising kids, and we've hired many of the women applied. So I would encourage you all, if you know women who are looking to get back into the workforce after taking a break, to come back.
I'm from Thailand, and I can say that women in Thailand are lucky because there is no gender issue there, and whatever we do, it's up to us to prove ourselves. So back to 20 years ago until now, we have minister as a lady minister, and we even have the lady prime minister. So, and also head of the banks and government institutes are women. So I think we're lucky in our country. Actually, as a woman, I was taught that whatever I'm going to do, I have to do my best. And it's not just a daughter or a mother or whatever. We have the duty to do, and we have to do our best. And it's not just for ourselves or our business, but we also have our duty to our country. So actually, I graduated banking and finance, and then I went to be an insurance specialist, and I was called back to work for my father to run a shopping mall, because Siam Piwat, our company, is the first retail developer in Thailand back in 1960. So I didn't have any knowledge about managing the shopping malls or anything, and I never wanted to work for my father because, you know, it's I try to avoid it as much as possible. But since I had no choice, I had to. Then I learned it from there. Okay, so we built the first 5-star chain hotel in Thailand. Some of you may recall it was the Siam Intercontinental Hotel in those days, and that was the first 5-star hotel. And then we went on built Siam Center, which is the first shopping mall in Thailand. Because Siam Piwat's vision is to always deliver new experience to Thai market. We have to develop a new prototype of property in Thailand, never before happened. And whatever we build, we have to manage and maintain it as best as we can. We have to be the best in the country, and our property has a mission to promote Thailand to the world, to attract people from around the world. So that was what I have been doing 30 years. And I had once in my life which made a very, very difficult decision, which is when financial crisis happened in Thailand, 1997. Everything went rock bottom. We went into IMF. And then by that time, we saw no future. And I remember that my father used to say that when whatever happened in the most difficult time, you must have courage to go out and change it. So I made a very big decision to stop the operation of Sam Intercontinental Hotel. In those days, it was running for 48 years. And then I took that worst chance to invest 600 million US dollars investment in the middle of crisis. I demolished hotel and I built Sam Paragon, which finally become one of the best shopping mall in Southeast Asia. In those days, actually, I think I took advantage from the crisis by calling those retailers to invest in Bangkok, because Thailand has always been the ultimate destination of tourism. And when the baht was weakened, it was the major draw of investors as well as all the tourists from around the world to come and shop with us. It was shopping paradise. So we have created a phenomenal, one of the best mall in Asia. We even managed to have the one of the biggest aquarium in Southern Hemisphere in the basement of Siam Paragon. We built about 5 million square meter with 14 Cineplex, 4D, 3D theater, as well as one convention hall with all the luxury brand names and everything.
Well, Kumpam is a very good friend, and we have very similar backgrounds. So exactly as what she had said, we shared a very similar path as well. 20-some years ago, when I finally decided to enter my family business, it was not really, something already determined and procured by, the boss. It's really because at that juncture, our company needed also an infusion of change. I started off after graduation from college to come home, doing all the typical training positions, and then finally ending with my own entrepreneurship and building my own events and public relations company, which was doing actually very well for 7 years, affording me a lot of freedom, ability to have my own expression, building my own credibility in the society, and in fact earning actually more than what my father would have been able to afford to employ me at that moment. But it was a time of change because it was right before the handover. And we're beginning to see already many differences in the commercial field. My family business, I'm sure many of you might know about, involve obviously the gaming activities in Macau, but also in Hong Kong, we have a portfolio of real estate developments. But at that moment, the core activities were really the ferry business, which was critical in really helping to move millions of passengers from Hong Kong to Macau. At that moment, Hong Kong was the primary market source for Macau. So the ferry business was in trouble because for over maybe 20 years, we had no competitor until right before, at the dawn of the handover, now even the Chinese state-owned companies wanted a piece of this huge market. So there we have China Travel Service, which developed another competitive business. And obviously, they were not as experienced, but they had the support from the government as well as the financial means. Now, everybody in my father's company, and at that moment, of course, the ferry business was 99.9% run by men. Engineers, people who have the experience of really running the ferry services. They all said, well, there's no other way, but we would simply just kill out our competitor. We will basically, operate more frequency, and we would do, various things to cause them more problems. We would take over all the pier, and so we don't allow them the space to operate. Well, I came on board at that moment simply because I ran marketing, proposals for other businesses. And so my father one day at home was saying, well, you are helping all these other companies and not helping us. So I said, well, will you allow me? If you allow me, I will come in and maybe I will look at what our issues are. We were suffering from image problems and so on. The business was deteriorating. So I went in, starting from there, I offered the women's perspective. Well, it's not just women, but also the consumer's perspective mainly. And then I was explaining it's not so much how we run our maintenance, but how we run the whole marketing and services. So from there, I started convincing the practically all male dominant crew to start thinking, from the different perspective. Now, I'm not going to utilize too much time, but from that, which was in 1995, we now have a fleet that has become the world's largest. We run the highest frequency in the world, not just to Macau, but the whole Pearl River Delta. But more importantly, women in the workforce now with this ferry company has risen to a very respectable percentage, and women are no longer just helping to serve meals on board, but they have also risen from being cabin attendants and regular basic services people to now we even have our first qualified captain. So I think in just the few minutes I was given, I have proven and demonstrated that women at any age and time, let alone the 21st century, could become the change agent and the innovator. And it is ingrained in all of us because the women always want to take care of the family, take care of the well-being of everybody, not just for ourselves. So this is where we probably could carve for ourselves, the difference.
My first job in the family business before was actually as a housekeeper, a hotel housekeeper cleaning rooms, because Contracts were in the business of property development. We have property investment and hospitality. Like Pam said, I never wanted to join the family business. You know how it is to work with a father. And to be very frank, when my mom gave birth to me, she actually cried because I turned out to be a girl. In a very traditional Chinese family, they always want boys, and my family was 3 girls and 2 boys, and the 2 boys come after, so you can know the pressure that my mom has. So she actually cried when she gave birth to me. So in a way, I feel that I'm raised like a boy. So gender doesn't really come as an issue when I was really growing up, because everything I have to do equally. What a boy do, I have to do. So my first job my dad threw me to do was actually a housekeeper. He asked me to line up behind the hotel together with all the foreign labor and get my own job. So at that time, the hotel didn't know who I was, so they assigned me to be a housekeeper for the staff toilet. So that was actually my first job, scrubbing toilets for the hotel staff. And then slowly, they thought, hey, this is, she scrubbed quite well, it's quite clean, let's make her clean the guest room. So that's how I got promoted and clean the guest room. And that's how I moved up in the hotel line. And later on, when there's a change in the management side of Contracts Group, that's where the board decided, hey, let's let Diana have a try, because she really walked from bottom up. And that's why I got the opportunity to be the general manager of a 5-star hotel. At that time, I was only 24. So imagine the pressure and from all the colleagues that I have in hospitality line. People talk about experience, people talk about age, and that was quite an intimidating role, but I'm very thankful for my board. At that time, we're changing our focus from being very time-driven workforce, because in the olden days they always see like an ideal workforce is someone who can work straight for 40 years nonstop, not because of performance based. If I see you in the office for 9 to 5, you're a good worker. So we're changing that perception at that time to be more performance based, regardless of what time you work, but as long as you deliver, that's where good job comes from. So it's very fortunate also changing to more KPI based and all, and that's where we got the equal opportunity to shine as women too. So later on, that's where I got also having the opportunity to try in different fields. So in sales, I was placed there in 2 years, and I sold everything I can, and we have nothing else to sell, and that's where they placed me back to the hotel and the healthcare. And in healthcare, like what Pansy say, as women, we really generally do not just think of ourselves, our family, but we really want to contribute. So since young, like one of my dream job is really how to take care of someone's health. So that's where we expanded into our preventive health care. We don't do curative because our family thinks that it's bad to earn money from sick people. So we only focus on prevention. So we take care of people before they become sick. And that's what we believe good doctors do. And from there, that's where I grow into this position. So I'm glad that at that time we were in the transition to be more performance-based rather than time-based worker. And the board actually is shifting their perception to look at women equally. Yeah.
When I was growing up, it was considered very messy, family all over the place, double marriages, and a real mixture. But of course, if you live through that life yourself, you've got to be comfortable with it. And I guess from my point of view, I'm very comfortable with different cultures. It's trained me to be able to be quite adaptive. But I guess when I was young, it was actually quite difficult to have to deal with many different grandmothers and great-grandmothers and different cultures, different parts of China, overseas Chinese, and dealing with different languages and so on. The second point I want to make was a statement my stepfather made to me that really woke me up. Like Diana, I also worked in a hotel where I had to clean toilets, and then I got promoted to cleaning rooms. And at one stage I thought, well, I wasn't hired to come here to clean the toilet. And when I complained to my stepfather at night over dinner, he says, look, you don't have to do anything if you don't want to, but if you're going to do something, do your very best. Be the best toilet cleaner. And I thought, okay. So I think it's given me a sense that whatever I do, I've got to do it very well. Now, the last point I want to make is my political experience. I started off training as a lawyer, but actually my career was in commodities trading, and then somehow I fell into politics. Now, my political career, I guess, started in the 80s when I became interested in politics, but it was really only in the 90s that I became a politician by being a member of the Hong Kong Legislative Council. And I never thought in my life that I would take up equal opportunities issues. I never thought that it was possible to have the opportunity between 1993 and the year 2000. That was when Hong Kong passed a whole series of equal opportunities law, and I was right in the center of it. So it's opportunistic. It wasn't necessarily something that I thought was the most important thing. In fact, when I joined the Legislative Council, I hadn't really thought about equal opportunity. So there was the opportunity of a great learning experience. And it was just fantastic. And sometimes you just have to go with the flow. And that was the flow in Hong Kong. That was the time we had an opportunity where equal opportunity was greatly discussed in Hong Kong. Today, my privilege is to have an opportunity to try and clean up the environment here, and I'll do the best that I can. Thank you.
Actually, for background, that conversation was 3 hours. So I can cover a lot more ground in 3 hours than in a couple of minutes. I'm going to keep it short because I want to pass 2 messages. And they're mostly directed at the ladies and also the men. So first of all, take risk in your career. If you want a career, take risk. I come from Belgium. I decided I was going to build a career on my own. To be frank, I left behind the family opportunities. It wasn't my parents didn't take it very well at the time, but over time they've gotten used to it. So first of all, how did I take risk? During my university studies in Belgium, I already went studying in Vienna with a scholarship I obtained. Then I obtained the next scholarship, went to Chicago. And that is something I explained to Alexander, I was reasonably lucky that I had a male name because I'm called Benedict, and for Americans that's male. So I immediately actually got a job.
You should share with us that funny story when you got interviewed. Please.
Well, I was going for interviews at the New York NYU Fair, New York University, and they all thought they were looking for a man because they thought Benedict would show up. And I showed up and they would say, well, are you sure you're Benedict? And I said, well, I am. So then it was very lucky for me because already they understood anti-discrimination. So they knew they couldn't let me leave. And as soon as they heard my story, they then effectively gave me several offers. So that was important. The male name, very useful, right? And now, actually, my son has a little bit of a female accent in it because he's Adrian with an E. And I think he may be equally lucky because now is the generation where people want to hire women. So he's going to show up and he's going to actually be a man, and then they're going to hire him again. So first thing is take risk. Then how did I get to Hong Kong? I got to Hong Kong in 1997. I think we all know, bad time to come to Hong Kong, right? The beginning of the Asia financial crisis. I quit my job in Brussels at the top law firm. And in fact, many people asked me if I even had a job. And the pictures in Belgium on the newspaper were Hong Kong with a big typhoon to signal the beginning of the Asian financial crisis. So I took risk, continued to take risk up until this date. That's message number one. Number two, and actually I'm called the head of risk and strategy, but I do say take risk, and specifically in your career. Secondly, the second important message is women are equal to men. Until, here comes the until, women are equal to men until they need to have babies, okay? So for me, I never had any problems in my career. I was total equal to men. I had an equally fast rise. I was promoted. It went all great. But when I needed to spend time being pregnant, and I needed to spend time getting rid of all the weight after that, and when I needed to do that over again, for a second son, I actually happen to have two sons, okay? I thought I would have daughters, but I ended up with sons. So, in fact, you are different. So, as a woman, you can hope you're not different, but you are. The moment you're going to get children, it's different. And then find the balance. Find the balance and find the support network. So that brings me to change. That's where I realized that for me, the support network was charity. I started doing a lot of charity together with other women in the context of an organization called Women in Finance. We bring women in the finance community together to have a support network and to benefit the societies around us. And I think that's greatly rewarding, and it has allowed me to actually get over a very difficult career period. So that's my two recommendations.
Looking back on the last 20 plus years of my career, I sometimes think I am so fortunate because the progression of my personal career has really coincided with the rise of China. A few years ago, in a feature article actually published by China Daily, they called me the unofficial voice of China, meaning non-governmental voice of China. So for all these years, I have been interpreting China, all the complexities, nuances, trying to really make sense of what's happening in China to the outside world. I grew up in China, born and raised in Beijing. I went to the US when I was a teenager to have my higher education. But since then, I started my career as the first China analyst, first working in the US, but my first assignment in Hong Kong was exactly 20 years ago. So Hong Kong has become my home. And it's been a great privilege covering China, interpreting China every day. On a day like this, when China's economic numbers were just released, I'm always very busy interpreting, analyzing, making sense of the recent volatilities. Now, I'm often asked, when you're in finance, working for a great global bank here in this part of the world, does that mean that you always cover numbers, you always work in front of the computer with spreadsheets? Actually, no. Finance is more about people than about numbers. Finance actually is about trust and confidence of your clients, and winning that trust and maintaining that trust. So that's a big myth that finance is only about numbers. One of the pieces of advice I could give to young women is the importance of education. When I grew up in China, I had a good education, but a lot of the education was based on facts and figures and rote memory. When I went to Harvard University and then later on Stanford University, I had to adjust to a very different educational environment. And I benefited hugely from the education I have had. But the most important thing, I think, when I graduated with my bachelor's degree from Harvard University, I actually was an English major. When I first went to the US, I didn't speak much English. So I thought the best way to master the English language is to major in English literature. But when I actually graduated, I not only graduated with a degree in English literature, I actually graduated with a degree in self-confidence. Harvard and Stanford gave me the confidence to speak up. It gives me the confidence to speak in front of large crowds. When I first left China, I was very timid. I didn't dare to speak. I didn't even dare to look at the professor, let alone speaking in front of large crowds. So for young women out there, the most important thing is to have the faith in yourself. Now, I also think it's important to find something that you love. For me, success is very simple. It's about passion, it's about perseverance, and it's about the confidence that you have in yourself. If you don't have the confidence in yourself, don't expect others to have the confidence in you. So that's my one piece of advice for young women out there.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving me such an opportunity to express my opinion. And after hearing that, I was being invited for this event. I feel so excited that I'm being recognized. In my Bible, nothing is mission impossible. There's always a way. My philosophy is I never give up my career. My career, in fact, continue to illuminate my life and the existence of a happy family. In fact, a happy family also requires a witty wife and a strong mother who is not being obsolete. So continue to be a career woman is the way to go from a belief. Of course, I'm still learning and improving my role as a wife and also as a mother without jeopardizing my continuous career development. My belief is women should not be left to themselves and be independent at all situations. So start to have this confidence when you are young. But it is never too late to begin, even for those mature women. My success factor is well mixed of commitment, patience, and courage. This is always my gospel since I was young. My commitment and courage to continue making revolutionary change for good, learned, and to be persistent. With these factors, I know myself more. To face my own shortfall and focus on the areas I have to continuously learn and improve to be competent. Dare to dream, dare to make a revolution, and dare to make it happen. My gospel has never let me down. This belief has made me evolve from a normal practice nurse to where I am now, a well-recognized singer and actress representing part of the Hong Kong entertainment industry. Finally, thank you again for letting me here to share my thoughts. Thank you so much.